Tales of Veldrith, written and produced by Matthew Taylor. Episode 5, The Sentinel, Chapter 2, The Missing Girl. The docks of Jorvik were a labyrinth of sagging warehouses, crumbling stone quays, and narrow alleys that reeked of brine and decay. By day, the area bustled with traders unloading goods from ships that came from as far as the southern coast of the Crown Colonies, but at night it was a haven for thieves and shadowy dealings. Tonight, it was quieter than usual, and the silence unsettled Vestinus. Kaya led the way with surprising confidence for someone so young. She darted through the shadows, her small frame moving quickly between piles of crates and stacks of rotting barrels. Vestinus followed closely, his crimson skin and horns hidden beneath a dark cloak. Even so, his presence was impossible to fully conceal. The very air seemed heavier where he walked.
There,
Kaya whispered, pointing to a building near the edge of the water. Its roof sagged in the middle, and the windows were boarded up, but a faint light flickered from within, leaking through cracks in the wood.
That's where they took her.
Vestinus nodded, placing a hand on Kaya's shoulder.
Stay here. If anything happens, run. Do you understand?
Her wide eyes met his, fear and defiance battling within them.
But...
No arguments,
he said, his tone firm but not unkind.
I'll get your sister back. Stay out of sight.
Kaya hesitated, but eventually crouched behind a stack of crates. Vestinus turned his attention to the building. He approached silently, his boots making no sound on the damp ground. His hand hovered over the hilt of his sword, but he didn't draw it. Not yet. He reached the door and pressed his ear against the warped wood. Muffled voices reached him, their tone low and chanting. The Heralds of Arawn. The words of the ritual were unmistakable, even if their meaning was shrouded in mystery. Vestinus took a deep breath, then pushed the door open just enough to slip inside. The interior smelled of damp wood and mildew, but beneath it was a metallic tang, blood. His eyes adjusted to the dim light, revealing a wide room lit by an array of flickering candles. The source of the chanting was clear. A group of robed figures stood in a circle, their voices rising and falling in unison. At the center of the circle was a young woman, bound and gagged, lying on the floor. Kaya's sister. The girl's eyes were wide with terror, and her struggles against the ropes only seemed to amuse the cultists. One of them, a tall figure with a bone-white mask that resembled a bird's skull, stepped forward, holding a curved dagger etched with glowing runes. He raised the blade above his head, and the chanting grew louder. Vestinus acted without hesitation. He drew his blade in one fluid motion, the dark steel gleaming faintly as it caught the candlelight. A muttered incantation escaped his lips, and the sigils on the weapon flared to life with an eerie, crimson glow. The cultists turned at the sound, their chanting faltering as Vestinus stepped into the light. His hood fell back, revealing his scarlet skin and curling horns. For a moment, there was silence as the cultists stared, their surprise giving way to a mixture of fear and anger. One of them hissed,
Caducci.
Vestinus said nothing. He lunged forward, his blade slicing through the air. The first cultist barely had time to raise his arms before the sword cut through him, the magic etched into the blade, tearing apart flesh and spirit alike. The others reacted quickly, drawing their own weapons, jagged daggers and curved swords, but they were no match for Vestinus's speed and precision. Two more fell before they could even get close, their bodies crumpling to the ground. The remaining cultists spread out, attempting to surround him. Vestinus muttered another incantation, and a burst of crimson energy exploded from his blade, sending two of them crashing into the walls. The leader, the one with the bird-like mask, barked an order.
Hold him. The ritual must not be interrupted.
Three cultists charged at once, their weapons flashing in the candlelight. Vestinus parried the first strike, his blade moving like a living thing, then sidestepped the second attacker. The third managed to land a glancing blow, the dagger scraping against his shoulder, but Vestinus barely flinched. He spun, his sword cutting through two cultists in a single fluid arc. The leader snarled and turned toward the girl, raising the dagger again. Vestinus saw the movement and stretched out his free hand. A tendril of arcane energy lashed out from his palm, striking the leader and knocking him backward. The dagger fell from his grasp, clattering to the floor. Vestinus crossed the room in 3 quick strides, his sword levelled at the leader's throat before he could rise. The remaining cultists froze, their fear now palpable.
Tell me what you're trying to summon,
Vestinus growled, his voice low and dangerous.
Or I'll make sure you never speak again.
The leader laughed, a harsh, broken sound.
You cannot stop us, Fallen. Arawn's avatar will rise, and death will claim this land. You are too late.
Vestinus's blade pressed harder against the man's throat.
Where are the others? Where is the next ritual site?
The leader said nothing, his masked face tilting slightly as though mocking him. Vestinus frowned, sensing a pulse of magic in the air. Before he could react, the man whispered a single word in the guttural language of the ritual, and his body erupted into flame, consuming him in an instant. The other cultists screamed and fled, disappearing into the shadows before Vestinus could stop them. Cursing under his breath, Vestinus turned to the girl. He cut her bindings with a swift motion and helped her to her feet.
You're safe now,
he said, his voice softer. Kaya burst through the door a moment later, her face pale with fear. When she saw her sister alive, she ran to her, wrapping her arms around her tightly. Vestinus sheathed his blade, his expression grim.
They'll be back,
he said.
This was only the beginning.
Kaya looked up at him, her voice shaking. But
what do we do now?
Vestinus glanced toward the door where the faint glow of dawn was beginning to creep in.
Now we find out where they're planning to strike next, and we stop them, no matter the cost.
Tales of Veldrith is brought to you by Metal and Magic, purveyors of Celtic and Viking-inspired casual jewellery. Visit metalandmagic.com. That's Metal and Magic with a CK.com. Use code Veldrith for free shipping in the US.